It's another district breakdown. It's Matt Diggs. It's the Wizard. We are talking 9-6A, the Garland district, who, if you remember last, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, where Dixie said, you know what, we're going to give a little bit more respect to 9-6A than we have in the past. And we are, because they got some quality top. It's a little top heavy, but those teams are quality, and we're hoping they actually pull out a first round win. Maybe that's overstepping it. A first round playoff win, maybe a team or two. But tell me who you got at the top, because I know who I got at the top. I got Khalid Lockett in the Saxy Mustangs, but who do you got?
People have to tune in next week to kind of find out what you think about the 9-6A versus 10-6A battle. I like you, Ward. I've got Caligula Lockett at the top. I've got Saxy. And the theme we're going to probably be talking about over the next 3 weeks. And I think it's really pronounced in these three districts, which is why it's going to be an ongoing thing, is kind of this, recruiting portal that seems to be existing in high school football, that players are leaving, you go into new places. I think when we were doing the research for 10 and 11 and this district, the number of players that that player is now no longer here, that player is no longer there, was more pronounced in these three districts. And we may even have errors. I wish we could have like a
Yeah.
little graphic up here saying this is as current as today when we're taping it, but give us 2 weeks when school starts. Who knows what it's going to look like once you get that final enrollment push. But I really like Saxy. The big question for me, though, Ward, about who's going to throw the ball to Khalid Lockett, is we know he's going to catch the ball. We know he's going to make some incredible plays. My internal research, I've got a player named Dirk Williams as kind of that kid who's going to be there and throw the ball. But that could be a big factor for Saxy, is who's going to be the quarterback. You got Brendan Haygood coming back as well. So you've got a lot of really good skill players. In Saxy, when they were good 3 or 4 years ago, and even back in 10 years, early 2000s, the thing I really noticed about Saxy was they had a really good defensive line. They had really good linebackers and skill players. And this year, I think when I'm looking at the feedback for them, that's what I'm seeing this year is what makes me excited about them a little bit more than Wiley East, because you got Corey Walls, an incredible defensive tackle. You got Aaron Eskew coming back, and these are two D1 players that they're going to have on the ends of this defensive line, who are just going to be bull rushing these offensive lines that in this district are not going to be as strong. So I think Saxy is by and far my number one pick. Khalid Lockett's going to get all the headlines and the numbers, and rightfully so, one of the best receivers in the state of Texas. But it's everybody else is what's made me excited about Saxy, because you can put a really good receiver on a team, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to amount to much. But it's the surrounding talent that makes me excited about Saxy this year.
Yeah, excellent. And I was just thinking about Khalid, because we just recently did a story, and we were like, what makes, I interviewed him. I was like, what makes you get those 50-50 balls? He's like, 50-50. I like to call those 99-1. They have a 1% chance of me getting it. And I ain't just catching the ball. I'm making some yak yards as well. I was like, all right, my fault. I won't call it 50-50 anymore. But there's another super athlete in this district as well, over at Wiley East. We've been talking about Michael Henderson for a while. He plays both ways. I know in college he played on the defensive side of the ball, but I mean, they helped them go 10-2 last year. Talk about Wiley East, and maybe even why that whole ISD looks like they may be both playoff teams again.
And they really do. When we talk about the district tiers here, I think we got three really no-brainers. You can even see Wiley East beating Saxy. That's happened over the last couple of years. But I think after that, you're going to see a lot of excitement for that fourth playoff spot, because that's going to be wide open. But I think Saxy and Wiley East, no matter how you want to flip them up, I have them within two in my rankings. So that's a one touchdown game. But you talked about Michael Henderson. He's back third year. We were talking about him as a sophomore, and we're excited now he's a senior, and he's going to be, we're going to see that full development and what he can do. They got their quarterback, Howard Fisher, back. We got Michael Henderson the third, Howard Fisher the fourth. It is a family affair of athletes at Wiley East. And Amarian Porter is a really talented wide receiver that they've got coming back as well. So for me, Wiley East is going to be riding the momentum. And I know, Ward, you don't like when I do these kind of things, but the way they lost to DeSoto last year, they gave DeSoto, other than Carroll, their toughest game in the
Yeah.
playoff run. I mean, that was only a 3 touchdown game. And for Wiley East to look across the field and play with DeSoto, I think that is a huge confidence boost for them going into the offseason. And I know you may feel like, you lose by 22 points. That's not really a good confidence boost. I think for Wiley East it is, because everybody, including us on our podcast, had that as a blowout, name your score,
Yeah.
DeSoto winning 70-14 or whatever. But Wiley East did not show any fear looking across the field at them. And all of those skill players that were there against DeSoto are coming back to this district. I think they're going to have a really, really good run and a good success in the district.
Well, before we go into Garland ISD, what about Wiley? I think you kind of gave Jagger Bale the business a lot last year. Maybe you were saying it was their fan base that was giving the business, but talk to me about about Amo and what they might do in this district.
You talk about third year as a sophomore. There were some questions about him and could he be the leader to step up. But you're a sophomore. We're going to talk about sophomores the next couple of weeks and kind of how their development will impact the trajectory of the team. But Jagger Bale is now a senior. He had 1,800 yards passing last year, 418 yards rushing. This is a player that has been through the battles, and I think that he's going to be better off for that. Josh Osborne, the really talented running back, 680 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns last year. He's going to come back. And Martavian Sanders, a really good receiver. So we got triplets, Ward. I know when I talk about the triplets, you start to get heartburn because back in the 90s, you don't like anything Cowboys related. But when you've got the triplets at Wiley, I think that they have good success. I think they're, because of what I'm seeing on the defense, or what I'm not seeing on the defense, they're a step below Saxe and Wiley East. But I think Wiley is a solid third place with a pretty big gap between 3 and the rest of them. And the rest of them, I know what you want to talk about with the media days and all the interviews you've been doing. There's been a lot of movement going on in the rest of Garland ISD to try to figure out that 4th spot. So it's good news and bad news. The good news is I'm probably going to be wrong on this 4th pick. I think every team is going to have a good chance to get to that 4th seed. But the bad news is I think they're going to not be successful in the first round of the playoffs against whoever they're going to get out in 10-6A. I think it's going to be a long and winding road for whoever gets this 4th seed. They're going to make it to the playoffs, but it's probably not going to be a pretty scene in the first round.
I was going to say, yeah, it's wide open for the 4th. I guess that's the positive out of all the poaching going on. It's wide open for that 4th spot. If you get yourself some turnovers here and there, get some wins here and there, all of a sudden you're that team. And I mean, one extra game is one extra game. Even if you're going to lose, you at least get an experience for the year after. Who do you see as in play for that 4th spot?
Well, I know that I'm going to give you the 2 names I don't think, but what you're hearing on other places as kind of the teams to beat. I know some people are high on Naaman Forest, and why wouldn't you be with D'Angelo Perales,
another third-way quarterback. How many we got? Yeah. A lot of them.
Coach's son at that. He had almost 3,000 yards total offense, but his favorite target, Chance Abels, when I was researching it, he's no longer at Naaman Forest anymore. So, who's going to throw him the ball? And I know they've lost some of their talent. And then a lot of people were high on Garland. And then when I'm researching Garland, I'm looking at their players, and it seems like half of their team went to Berkner over the offseason. So I look at those 2 teams who are kind of been the popular pick for that 4th place. So my pick for the 4th place, I'm going to take a little bit of an alternative route. I like Lakeview Centennial. Lakeview Centennial impressed me last year. They've got speed all over the place. Julius Spencer may be the best player that you haven't heard about. He had over 700 yards rushing last year. Trenton Harris is a remarkable wide receiver. And I just liked the fact that they had so much young talent last year when I got a chance to watch them in the game. But again, it's really close, Ward. I think you could interchange any of those teams. Rowlett, Vincent Martin, they got him coming back. I think you have 4 legitimate teams who can fight for that 4th spot. I think North Garland and South Garland are a tier below those 4 teams. For me, I've got Lakeview Centennial number 4, but I think Naaman Forest, Garland, or Rowlett can make an argument for that 4th spot.
All right, give me your 1 through 9 here real quick.
What about the Saxe Mustangs number 1, Wiley East number 2, Wiley number 3, Lakeview Centennial number 4, Naaman Forest at number 5, Rowlett at number 6, Garland at number 7, North Garland at number 8, and South Garland at number 9.
There you have it. And they play 10-6A next in the first round of the playoffs. That's who we're talking about next week. That's a 7-team district. They could have traded off a team here and have 8-8, but that's not the way it went. So Diggs, I'm eager to hear what you say about 10-6A next week.
Got a lot to talk about with 10-6A. We got 2 new teams up from 5A. We got Forney and Longview. I know you love talking about Longview in the DFW district, but all of that, and for the first time in a while, Ward, I'm not going to be very high on Longview. You'll have to tune in to find out why.
I got to figure that out. All right, y'all tune in next week.